Hi everyone, my name is Bridget Duignan. I am doing my research paper on how gender inequality plays a role in K-pop boy band popularity. I also just wanted to apologize for the video quality. I have a pretty old laptop and Zoom is my friend right now, so we're working through technology. So basically, like I said, the title of my paper is How Gender Inequality Plays a Role in K-pop boy band popularity. So I chose this topic because I was interested in the way gender plays a role in society in general. And the reason, like the day I was brainstorming ideas for this paper, I watched the Grammys and BTS was on the Grammys. I never heard of BTS before. I didn't know what K-pop really was. I never really thought about it. But this prompted me to learn more, and we actually talked about it the next day in class. So that was really interesting to apply what I've learned. So specifically, my paper has focused on boy bands and the gender within them, but specifically boy bands that are Korean pop boy bands, such as BTS. That's pretty much my main focus because that was my main entryway into understanding what it was. So for a brief overview of my research, I start out my paper debunking gender in music in general. So a lot of the resources that I found, they're very modern resources such as YouTube, anything I found on Google, news articles, information from award shows and things of that nature. So when I researched gender in music, a lot of the information that came up initially was about women. And so I did understand this, and I did a lot of delving in my paper about how women are mistreated in music, what that looks like, and also just feminism in general and how that looks in America, how that looks worldwide, and how women are historically disenfranchised. While looking at women, I also looked at men after that. And so specifically, the most information that I found about men regarding men in music was those men who are in bands, and specifically those who are in boy bands. So one of my sources defined boy bands as a group of young men in their late teens or early 20s that write love songs marketed toward young girls. So I found that this definition was particularly interesting because while it's about a boy band, it's also talking about women. So women are always kind of bringing into the mixture, and that's something that I never really thought of before finding this research. So having this baseline, I wanted to go a little more into the knowledge of boy bands and how that they conform to perform for their respective audiences. So I grew up with the Jonas Brothers, I grew up with One Direction, and I grew up with them not really having a hard time performing who they were. You know, they were handsome young men, and if they took their shirt off at a concert, the young girls went crazy. But then, like looking at Korean pop, it's a lot different. So the way that men are presented in K-pop is so different from the way that men are presented in American music. And that way is just a separate part of my research paper where I talk about Korean beauty standards and Korean societal standards as well. But what I also found very interesting was that the men in K-pop are found by my research, to be dressing more conventionally feminine and dance that isn't in a way that doesn't really showcase their body structure. And they just have a bond within their group. And that bond within their group creates a bond within their fans and within their fandoms, which is what really prompts their success and keeps them going. So gender in South Korea is the next portion of my paper that I go into. And I talk about how women significantly outnumber the amount of men in this country. But even with this information, they're still so incredibly disenfranchised and so incredibly scrutinized in so many different ways of society. One of the ways that I talked about was the economy and how women are scrutinized in the economy, because South Korea ranks 124 out of the 149 countries in the world that are in terms of economic participation and opportunity for women. So that number was just baffling to me. I did not think that South Korea was that low on the list, and understanding that there are so many women that outnumber men in that country was really interesting as well, to kind of put those pieces together. So they have the wage gap struggles, struggles in the economy, much like many other countries. And then we look into Korean beauty standards, which is what really ties in the idea of women and men together within my paper. So I attached in my paper a photo of the band, the Bangtan Boys, BTS, as well as a composite photo of all of the competitors for the Miss South Korea pageant in 2013. And the research that I found regarding both of those photos and regarding the thoughts surrounding it that came from the people on the internet that put it out there in the comments that were received were that they were all very similar. So all the women in the Miss South Korea photo looked very much alike. They looked like twins, and that aided in their beauty success and helped them get to that point in the competition. And then looking at BTS, they are different in the way that they dress in a certain way, but they do conform to a certain hairstyle, they conform to a certain way of dancing. And so I kind of talk about how maybe the conformity of all of these individuals into what society expects from them is what truly aids them in their success, because they're doing what society wants. They're not really going against the confines, but because they're doing it together, it makes the bond even more special. So I also talk about YouTube and modern media and the way that that aids in K-pop and boy bands and popularity in music. And that's because after the Grammys, I found BTS and K-pop bands on YouTube. We also talked about them in class not too far after I was beginning this paper, and we talked about Psy and the era of simpler times of Gangnam Style in 2012, and how that took the internet by storm, and just the articulate details within K-pop, as well as the dancing and the singing and the bonds that the boys have within the boy bands, and how that aids so much in their success as well. So that also brings me to a point of how the BTS in particular, that boy band, has an army. Their fan base is known as their army. And their army is what really keeps them going. It's what keeps them successful. And they originate with YouTube. They, much like other bands who are known around the world, like One Direction, they found their success within the internet, and how one click can make such a difference to spread to such a wide variety of people. And so their fandom, they meet each other online, they form these bonds within the comment section, they have all of these special commonalities that they share. And it's also a result of because the people that they're idolizing, the people that they're watching on the screen, have that bond as well. So I talk about all of that in my paper. That's a very brief overview, but I did close my paper regarding the fact that I am aware that I did not include really any information about any non-binary, gender non-conforming, or any other gender identifying groups that were not male identifying or female identifying. And the reason for that is because I just felt that that was just such a separate layer and such another interesting topic, but I could not concise that into a little paper. Well, not a little paper, but into one paper that was concise within thought. So I did want to bring that out to knowledge that I understand that I did not include those individuals within those communities, but I do not want them to go unnoticed either. For me, the focus of this paper was just easier to go within male and female. So yeah, I did my examination of gender within K-pop boy bands, and I hope that y'all enjoyed this journey as much as I have, and I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback and learning more from you all as well. Stay safe out there.